What are we discussing on today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast? Joc Pederson is him, and lineup adjustments the D-backs can make with Gabriel Moreno out.
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas. I'm a multimedia journalist and I'm a graphic designer, so please go check out my website, MillardThomas24.myportfolio.com. On there, you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, we'll be talking about the D-backs come from behind win again, courtesy of him, Joc Pederson. We'll talk about how it's audition time for the D-backs and also lineup adjustments with Moreno out. So a whole bunch I want to talk to you guys about today. But first, I want to say thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms. So please continue to tell your friends. And one of those platforms is YouTube. Please hit subscribe to Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, and let's talk about that Game 1 victory against the Cleveland Guardians, because the D-backs once again had a fantastic come-from-behind victory. And again, it was courtesy of the guy who delivered the big home run in the series finale against the Pittsburgh Pirates, Joc Peterson. What a fantastic pickup by the D-backs this offseason. We did a whole podcast yesterday. Is he the best free agent signing in the Mike Hazen era? We said no. We had him ranked number 2 behind Merrill Kelly, which is very, legitimate. But Joc Pederson still has been incredible for the D-backs this season, delivering big hits in the clutchest moments. All of a sudden, I mean, Joc Pederson hasn't played enough games, but if he was an everyday player, I mean, I don't think he'd be in the MVP conversation, but he might get a couple votes. I mean, a 946 OPS, 18 home runs, and this guy absolutely destroys it in the biggest moments. Runners in scoring position this year for the D-backs, 321 average, 1175 OPS. High leverage moments, 378 average, 1374 OPS. This guy comes alive in the biggest moments for the D-backs, and once again, he did it last night against Cleveland, 8th inning. We talked about how Cleveland's bullpen has been nails all season long. We talked about it on the podcast doing the preview for this series. The biggest strength of this Guardians team, the reason why they had the best record of the American League, is because of that shut down pen. You go up and down that bullpen, they had like 6-7 dudes with like a sub 2.5 ERA. Like, their pen was absolutely insane. And Joc Pederson was able to get a huge home run in the 8th inning against the Cleveland pen to lift the D-backs to victory. And overall, the D-backs did great damage against that Cleveland bullpen. They tagged runs off 3 of their relievers. And again, every reliever Cleveland has is very good. So great job by the D-backs offense to do damage against the relievers, because that was an area I was concerned about entering the series. I said, you're going to have to score early in the series, because if the Cleveland Guardians have a lead entering the late innings, once their bullpen comes in, it could be over. It could be done. But thankfully, the D-backs offense was able to take it to Cleveland's bullpen and was able to constantly put pressure and put up runs. And it makes you feel like for the rest of the series, maybe the D-backs are just going to go ahead and win it, not comfortably, but it will be a convincing series win. If you could do that in game number 1 against Cleveland's bullpen, I feel very good about your chances to do it again at least one more time over the course of the next 2 games. And so for the D-backs to do that against Cleveland's bullpen in game number one, I think really made a big impression and a big impact on the confidence level of Cleveland. And then also we talked about how, yes, because Cleveland's bullpen is so good, you're going to have to score early for the D-backs. And of course, the D-backs are the best team in Major League Baseball in scoring in the first inning, and they got the game off to a roaring start against Cleveland in game one with Quetzal Marte. Of course, game one likes a hit, the first inning home run, as he typically does. We've seen it a bunch this season. We saw it most recently in the last series against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Quetzal Marte, when he's the leadoff hitter for the D-backs, anything is possible, and he starts off game one with a loud shebang home run. He crushed it. Now, it would only been a home run in 21 of the 30 ballparks, but off the rip, you could tell it's a home run by Marte. Then Gabriel Moreno follows it up right after. Let me mention, it was a one pitch, one home run for Quetzal Marte. I mean, that's like the best way to start the game. You see one pitch, and all of a sudden, it's a 1-0 lead for your team. That just feels like it's going to inspire the entire lineup when you do something like that. And Gabriel Moreno comes back right after Quetzal Marte for back-to-back home runs to start the game. And so it was almost like game one against Pittsburgh Pirates, right? Because the last week against the Pirates, game number one, not Quetzal Marte, Corbin Carroll starts it off with a little league home run. He gets a triple error scores, and then the next three batters gets home runs. And so you were like, is this going to happen again? Are we going to see the first four batters gets home runs? And the D-backs offense, they weren't able to do that, but they were able to put up a couple of runs against Logan Allen, who was shaky throughout his start against the D-backs. And so great job by the D-backs offense to both score early and score late in the game against Cleveland, because we were very nervous about the D-backs scoring late against that Cleveland bullpen. Looks like Justin Martinez, maybe he should be the new D-backs closer, because I don't know why. We talked about this on yesterday's podcast. We love Ryan Thompson. The numbers say he should be a good closer, but whenever he's actually given the closer role for the D-backs the last couple of years, he just feels like he hasn't executed in those moments. I don't know if it's the pressure. I don't know if he just not built for that role. He's probably just built to be that 7th, 8th inning high leverage guy, because whenever he's been tasked to be the closer, he just doesn't look like the same reliever. And again, it happened. Ryan Thompson, I'm out on him as a closer. I still love him as a reliever. I don't think he needs to get the Paul Sewald treatment where you put him back in low leverage moments, but put him back in the 7th or 8th inning. And now let's go with Justin Martinez as our closer. He looked nasty last night. Of course, he can throw hard. He's got movement on his pitches. He's got sink as well. I think Justin Martinez has the best arsenal to be a closer on this team with his put away stuff. I think going forward, it needs to be Martinez that gets the ball in the 9th inning of a close game, and then keep going with the Ryan Thompson, the Pucks, and the Ginkles as your go-to high leverage relievers out the pen to hope deliver you that win. Then we also have to talk about what has happened to Zack Allen. He gave us some length in game number one, but again, another shaky start by Allen. His ERA is up to 3.75. He just hasn't been that good this season. It's like the 2021 Zack Allen, where you were just always waiting for him to get back on track. Obviously, he dealt with injuries in 2021. He's dealt with injuries again this season. And it feels like whenever he has a season where he's on and off the injured list, he just can't find that consistency. He can't get back into rhythm. And this season, he's just been very inconsistent. And when you look at the numbers for Zack Allen, the biggest thing that stands out is the numbers against his four-seam fastball. Hitters have teed off against his fastball this season, and that has not been the case in the past. Over the last few years, his fastball has arguably been his go-to pitch. I mean, it's the pitch he throws the most, but in terms of being his best pitch, you can definitely make that argument. Back in 2022, he had a 165 average allowed on his fastball, a 301 slugging allowed on his fastball. Even last year, a 238 a 238 batting average allowed on his fastball with a 360 slugging. But this season, when you look at the fastball numbers for Zack Allen, 309 average allowed on the fastball, 500 slugging allowed on the fastball. And you say, maybe it's bad luck. Maybe it just, maybe it's a little fluky. The expected stats say it's accurate. Expected batting average given up on his fastball, 294, and expected slugging, 499. So he's actually giving up the correct amount of hits and slugging on his fastball, which is crazy. Zack Allen has not been the same guy. Torey Lovello probably left him in a little bit too long last night. At least he gave the D-backs some length in the bullpen. They needed it, but the D-backs need to get Zack Allen back on track. Right now, the rotation has the biggest question mark surrounding it. We're going to see Erod in his debut today, which we'll preview in segment number 2, but just hurts to see Zack Allen struggling. And now we got Gabriel Moreno also out. He left last night's game, it sounded like, with a strained groin. I don't think we've heard yet on the prognosis or how long he would be out, but I expect at least, couple of weeks probably if it's a strained groin. So D-backs gain another in Erod, but lose one in Gabriel Moreno. And so we'll be talking and previewing Erod's debut start in segment number 2. But if you want to bet on the D-backs getting the victory in Erod's debut against the Guardians, why not place a little wager down on FanDuel Sportsbook? Because I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games and the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. My favorite thing to do on FanDuel is the same game parlay. Give me the D-backs money line. Give me the over on total basis for Ketel Marte. And give me Jake McCarthy single. When that hits, it brings a big smile to my face and money to my bank account. And if you want those two things, head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right. Let's get back to the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast and talk about Erod's debut and how it's audition time for the rotation and the rest of this team, because Erod is making his debut on Tuesday, the long anticipated debut, because during the offseason, it was so slow. Free agents weren't really signing. We were like, okay, maybe at the winter meetings. And then the winter meetings were almost over. But at the 11th hour, the D-backs made a big move and signed Eduardo Rodriguez, 4 years, $80 million. It came across the ticker. I was happy. I was ecstatic. I didn't think Erod was an elite pitcher, but I thought to be your number 3 starter after Gallen and Kelly and just ahead of a 5, I thought Erod was going to be a perfect fit for the D-backs. Lefty too. D-backs rotation was very right-handed dominant, so I like the fact that we added a little wrinkle and lefty Erod, and he got hurt immediately. That was the downside of signing Erod. He's the guy who's been hurt a lot throughout his career, but we expected, maybe he gets hurt during the season. Maybe we see a few starts before he gets hurt, but no, he decided to get hurt immediately before the season starts, and now after a very long time and a lot of anticipation, he's making his debut August 6th, and there's a lot of pressure, to be honest, on Erod to be good. Maybe he doesn't have to be good game number 1, but he has to at least lay the foundation that he's going to be okay. He can't go out there in his debut and give up 8 earned runs. Maybe he's not perfect, but if he could go, 4 innings and like 2 to 3 earned runs and at least look solid and make me feel good about, okay, we get this guy some more opportunities. We let him build his arm up, let him build some momentum, and he should be good going forward. He doesn't have to be perfect in his first start, but at least lay the foundation for you being good in the future, because right now this D-backs rotation, like we've talked about, a lot of question marks. Zack Allen is struggling all of a sudden. Ryan Nelson, last couple starts looking a little bit more shaky. We know how bad Monty has been. This D-backs rotation could definitely use someone that is trustworthy right now, and unfortunately, I don't know how many guys in this D-backs rotation I trust right now. I trust a Brandon Pfaadt. I like a Ryan Nelson. Of course, I love Zack Allen, but is there anyone outside of Pfaadt that you trust right now if you enter the postseason, if it starts tomorrow? I don't even trust Zack Allen right now. And can you blame me? In the second half of last season, he struggled. Entering the postseason, he struggled. And so I look at this rotation, it kind of needs a good Eduardo Rodriguez. And potentially, we could get a good Erod in his debut. I expect him to be on a pitch count, but regardless, Erod in his career against Cleveland has actually dominated the Guardians. He's 6-0, undefeated against the Guardians in his career. 2.28 ERA in 55 innings with 46 strikeouts as well. He has dominated the Guardians in his career. So this is a great time for Erod to come back. It's a great opportunity for him to go against an opponent he's familiar with, an opponent he has success against. Maybe we don't get a super long, deep start from Erod because he hasn't pitched in months, but potentially it could be a good start for him to lay the foundation, lay the groundwork for him being good in the future. Because right now, I think this is audition time for the rotation, and only this it's audition time for the rotation and honestly the whole D-backs team, because right now you're still trying to figure out who the playoff rotation is for the D-backs. I got Zack Allen there. I'm still playing Gallen, the ace of the team, in my rotation, of course. Brandon Pfaadt, the new ace of the team, he's definitely going the rotation. And then assuming Merrill Kelly is healthy, he should hopefully be back by maybe the end of August. I'm saving a spot for him. I'm confident Merrill Kelly's going to come back and look good. I don't know why. I'm just not worried about Merrill Kelly. Once he steps back on the mound, I feel like he will be fine. And so that leaves two spots in the rotation for Monty, Ryan Nelson, and Eduardo Rodriguez. And maybe you think Erod already has one of those spots locked up, but is that a guarantee? What if Erod comes out and he looks like another Jordan Montgomery? The way Ryan Nelson's pitching, he's been way better than Monty this season. I think he has the leg up on Monty right now. Does that mean it comes down between Monty and Erod for that final spot in the rotation? Right now, it's audition time for the starters. Monty, Ryan Nelson, Erod. I believe those three pieces are fighting for the final two spots in the rotation. Erod definitely has more commitment from this team, probably because of that 4-year contract he has. Jordan Montgomery is on an option deal for next season. So if the D-backs didn't put him in the playoff rotation, I think that would make a little bit more sense than Erod not making the playoff rotation as a guy with a 4-year commitment on his deal. And then once you figure out who your playoff rotation is going to be, that also affects the bullpen. Like, are you going to bump one of your relievers and maybe put like a Ryan Nelson or a Monty, whoever doesn't make the rotation? Are you going to put them in the pen? Do you even think one of those guys who doesn't make the rotation, do they even deserve to be in the pen? It's a lot of audition times right now for the D-backs to decide who to keep on their roster once it comes playoff time, because I believe right now until the end of the season is kind of like the audition time for contenders, and it's the time where you figure out who should be on your team, who the contributors are, and you cut the dead weight. This has been the attitude and philosophy of the D-backs going back to last year when we saw them cut the dead weight with the Mad Bums, the Nick Ahmeds, right? Send the Pavin Smiths down. Even what they were doing with the outfield with the Jake McCarthy's and the Alec Thomas, like they showed you if you don't produce, you're not going to play. Joc Pederson earlier this season, if you don't produce, you're not going to play. That's been the philosophy of this D-backs team the last 2 years. And so going forward, this is audition time right now for the rotation, for the pen, and even the lineup. I'm mostly looking at the pitching, but a guy like Alec Thomas, I love his defense, but if his bat doesn't start to turn it around, I think that's a big question mark as to whether or not he should be a serious playoff contributor. So right now, until the end of the season, this is audition times for contenders. This is where you figure out who the dead weight is and you cut them loose before it's too late. And with Erod coming back, it's a perfect time to finally address some questions in that rotation. Who do you want to keep for playoff rotation? I got Gallen. I got Pfaadt. Between Monty, Ryan Nelson, and Erod, though, it definitely feels like Erod is getting one of those spots with Kelly getting the other. So that's 4 guys locked in. Now it's between Monty and Ryan Nelson. Who's it going to be? Who's going to win it? Who's going to go in the pen if the D-backs want to go that direction? A lot of question marks surrounding the D-backs pitching staff right now. And of course, eventually rosters will expand, so that will help the D-backs make some easier decisions. But Erod coming back, I do like it overall, raising the overall talent and ceiling of this rotation, and hopefully he can have himself a hell of a debut against a team he's dominated his whole career. Now, with Gabriel Moreno seemingly going to be out for a little while, I want to talk about some lineup adjustments the D-backs can make with Moreno out. But hey, if you're looking for any supplies, I suggest Supply House because get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is a reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy to use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining supplyhouses.com's free trade master program. Every trade master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouses.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Let's talk about some lineup adjustments. I want to do this discussion before the Gabriel Moreno news. I already had this one planned out, but now with Gabriel Moreno seemingly going to be out a couple weeks, let's talk about the best ways to build the lineup without Moreno and some of the ways we could build the lineup once he comes back as well. Because Moreno was starting to crush it in that number 2 spot for the D-backs. I really loved him in that spot, and I loved that Torey Lovullo made that move. We get on Torey Lovullo a lot. There's a lot of questionable decisions he does with his lineup, and at times when he's picking relievers out the pen, like I've had a lot of criticism for Torey Lovullo throughout his tenure with the D-backs, but moving Gabriel Moreno up to that number 2 spot, fantastic move by him. Prior to him getting hurt last night, his numbers when batting number 2 for the D-backs this season, 415 average and a 1075 OPS. Moreno has crushed it from that number 2 spot, and now he's going to be out a while. So let's figure out how to build the best lineup without Moreno currently. This is going to be based off recent trends that I've seen with this team and how different players have played this season. So if there is a lefty on the mound, this is how I would want the team to build the roster without Gabriel Moreno. With lefty on the mound, I'll go Ketel Marte to start, Jake McCarthy, number 2, now filling in for that Moreno spot. Then go Gurriel, Josh Bell, Eugenio Suarez, Corbin Carroll, Randall Grichuk, Jose Herrera, and then Geraldo Perdomo. Marte still elite as a leadoff hitter. McCarthy has been incredible against lefties this season, and so I think he would be absolutely fine in that number 2 spot for the D-backs. We can go and look at Jake the Rake's numbers as when you look at Jake the Rake's numbers against lefties this season, he has been way better for some reason against lefties than righties. 360 average and an 888 OPS against lefties. So that could be a nice little wrinkle at the top of your lineup. All of a sudden, a lefty's like, wait, why is there a lefty batting number 2 against me? That could throw him off. And then when he sees Jake the Rake start to rake, he will be even more surprised. Jake McCarthy, over his last 14 games, he is batting 352 with a 915 OPS. Jake McCarthy has been on fire, and that's why I believe he should be playing a lot more than Alec Thomas. And then Eugenio Suarez, I have him number 5 in my mock lineup right now because I want Eugenio to bat higher in the lineup. I think Eugenio has been on a heater, right, since July. That's not what I think. That's what the numbers say. And I think he's been really good in clutch situations over the last few weeks. I think he's in a groove right now. And I just trust him actually in big moments, which is crazy because think about how he felt about Eugenio the first couple months of the season. We all wanted him cut. We all wanted him traded. We never want him in the big moment. And now I'm like, if Eugenio's like the number 4, number 5 hitter, I'm not mad at all. In this lineup, I have him as the number 5 hitter. I want to see him more productive RBI situations. And so I think number 5 is a good spot for him. And then after Eugenio, I have Corbin Carroll in this lineup because you still want Corbin Carroll in your lineup. And I want to put him a little bit higher to put him in a position where he could definitely drive in some runs because we know Carroll, if there's a lefty on the mound, Torey Lovullo is going to put him in the second half of the lineup, but I don't want Corbin Carroll to be in no man's land. I want him to be around some decent guys and still have an opportunity to drive in guys and be driven in himself. Last week, there was a lineup where Corbin Carroll was batting 8th, and he was behind both Pavin Smith and Kevin Newman and one spot ahead of Jose Herrera. I don't want to see that. I don't want Corbin Carroll in no man's land in the lineup. That's why I like him number 6 here, because you get a nice mix of a lot of guys who crush left-handed pitching for your first 5 batters. And all of a sudden it's, Corbin Carroll, reigning rookie of the year, top 5 MVP finisher, batting 6th. And then you can have Randall Grichuk behind him. You can have Grichuk behind him, who's been good with runners in scoring position this year. I like his ability to drive and runs. And so him behind Carroll, I just think makes a lot of sense. And now we got Corbin Carroll in more of an impact position in the lineup. I would like that a lot. And then once Moreno gets back, I think you just replace Moreno for McCarthy in that number 2 spot. Maybe move McCarthy down to like number 5 or number 6, and then just move everyone else down one spot. I think I would still want Eugenio as that number 5 hitter. And then maybe you go Jake McCarthy 6, Carroll, Grichuk, and then Perdomo. Or you could go Jake McCarthy 5, and then go Eugenio, Carroll, Grichuk, Perdomo. Either way, Moreno back at the number 2 once he's healthy, and then you move everyone else down a spot, and you still keep Jake the Rig McCarthy in the lineup. And then when there's a righty on the mound, I think I would go Carroll to lead it off, Ketel Marte number 2, Joc Pederson, of course, 3, Josh Bell 4, Eugenio Suarez 5, Jake McCarthy 6, Lourdes Gurriel 7th, Jose Herrera 8, and then Geraldo Perdomo 9. Carroll, still, when you look at the numbers, his most productive spot in the lineup is when he's batting leadoff. So if he's going against a right-handed pitcher, which is his best situation, I want him batting leadoff in that situation. He does better against right-handed pitching, and he does the best when he's batting leadoff. So let's just put him number 1, can still use his speed and hopefully tap into that power that we've seen more recently over the last few weeks in that leadoff spot. Ketel Marte can bat anywhere. Joc Pederson's on fire. We don't got to talk about them. Josh Bell, switch hitter. And then Eugenio Suarez. I have him number 5. You might think that's kind of surprising considering he's a right-handed hitter. Maybe you would think to put Jake McCarthy or someone else here, but Eugenio Suarez, the thing with him, he's actually better against right-handed pitching than left-handed pitching, which is kind of weird, but he has a way higher slugging against righties this season than he does lefties. That's why I'm like, I don't mind Eugenio the righty being number 5 in my lineup. Jake McCarthy batting 6. And then Gurriel number 7. You might think that's kind of crazy. I want Gurriel batting 3rd when there's a lefty on the mound, but when there's a righty on the mound, the platoon splits for Gurriel are actually quite large. He has like an 850 OPS against the lefties, and that's like 650 against righties. That's why I got Gurriel 7th in my lineup, Herrera 8th, and then, of course, Perdomo's always number 9. And then once Moreno gets back, I think you could put Moreno probably in that number 8 spot. Maybe you want to put him in the number 7 spot. I think this is where you get a little bit more crazy with your lineup in the second half. You could really adjust it any way that Eugenio, McCarthy, Gurriel, Moreno, that 1 through 4. After Josh Bell, you could really mix it up any type of way, and I won't be upset. Always finish it with Geraldo Perdomo as the cherry on top. If the D-backs make these moves with their lineup, I think it would just increase the ceiling. I think it would be, I think it would just have better balance as well, put some players in better positions of power, like the Corbin Carrolls, like the Eugenio Suarez's. Then also, if you notice, I didn't mention a Kevin Newman or Alec Thomas. Those two should be the main 2 subs off the bench. Newman already doesn't play every day. He's more of a platoon guy that just comes in when, Geraldo Perdomo needs a day off, or you need someone else in the infield to have a day off. And Alec Thomas, he should get the same treatment. Jake McCarthy should be playing 80% of the time over Thomas. He hasn't been that good this season. Defensively, he's great. Offensively, he doesn't do enough. So for Thomas, I don't want him every day. I want him at times as a platoon guy, late game substitution. And if the D-backs make these adjustments, I think it would only increase the D-backs offensive production for the rest of this season. Now, that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Doses.